Don't worry, I don't really need... Thank you, Sharon. Sharon Crowley, owner of Garth Road Inn. I'm giving you a plug. Don't ever practice a speech in front of Jim Heyer. We were up until midnight. I called Jim at 11:45. I said, I hope I'm not bothering you. Anyway, but thank you so much, and I'm just overwhelmed and so much appreciate all of you being here. I want to thank all of you for attending this event that WRO has graciously organized. I am so humbled to be honored by this fine organization that has been fighting for fair and affordable housing since 1969. Eight. I told you, Jim. I am even more pleased to be surrounded by so many good friends, family, and colleagues. I'm so glad that my two brothers, Harold and Jeff, and their wives, Karen and Rita, and my sister, Ellen, came down from Connecticut, and my nephew, Matthew, who works for NBC Universal. And Matthew, did you have anything to do with Donald Trump? And other family members and friends could be here tonight. And my husband, John, too. You know, when I was at a recent HGAR meeting, it was announced that I'd be receiving this honor. Someone from the back of the room asked if being a pioneer meant that I was old. Although this comment was made in jest, it made me think about the importance and meaning of this recognition. Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we do, but we make a life by what we give." When I hear this quote, I think about my parents and the lessons of community service and civic duty that they instilled in me and my siblings at an early age. Our family has a proud tradition of service to our country and our community. My passion for advocacy comes from them. As many of you know, I grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut. My father, Joe Kramer, was a decorated World War II veteran who served in the Battle of the Bulge. When he returned home after the war, he sold war bonds to further support the effort. My parents later owned and operated an insurance and real estate office. Sound familiar? My parents specialized in helping the uninsured and other members of the community who could not get conventional insurance coverage. To my mother's chagrin, Dad would often help clients by advancing payments to help them get by when they couldn't otherwise. My father was involved in many civic organizations, but was perhaps most proud of being long-term president of the Waterbury Hebrew Free Loan, an organization that provided interest-free loans to members of the community who needed funds to get on their feet, start a business, or even buy a home. Even I was a client. While in college, my mother would arrange one of these interest-free loans to help me with my expenses. I'd often say, I may not be able to make the required payments, and she told me, don't worry about it, I have an in with the president. Dad was heavily involved in Democratic politics in Waterbury for most of his life. He served as finance commissioner for the city for many years and was elected to this position under both Democratic and Republican administrations. My mother, Pearl, also served our country in World War II. She worked in Washington, D.C. for the State Department, supporting the European war effort. She never really told us what she did. So when we were kids, we used to tell people she was the secretary to the Secretary of State. She did tell us she met President Roosevelt twice when she was a courier from the State Department to the White House. In Waterbury, she volunteered for years on behalf of the synagogue and even won a national award for her fundraising efforts. I am proud to say that my siblings and I have continued our family tradition of community service and civic duty. My brother Harold, who's here, is the COO of the National Association of Amateur Radio. You would know it better as ham radio. He has participated in many emergency and public service communication activities. In fact, he was involved in emergency operations during the Boston Marathon in 2013. Like me, he is involved in politics and serves on many committees and boards. My brother Jeff is a retired professor of healthcare management at the University of Connecticut. He has a passion for student advancement and excellence in education. He just consented to what might turn out to be the most challenging volunteer position ever, to be on the board of his condo association. I've been there, Jeff. Still am. My sister Ellen also works in education. She works with a diverse group of students who require special training and are learning basic computer skills in order to advance themselves or their careers. She's also passionate about animal rights. As you can see, advocacy has always been a part of my family's life. So what does being an advocate mean to me? From the time I moved to Westchester in 1978, I have been deeply involved in my community and helping to advance human rights. To me, advocacy is all about making life better for everyone. But this is not something I have done alone. One of the great civil rights leaders of our time, Lyndon Johnson, once said, "There are no problems we cannot solve together, but very few we can solve ourselves." I am only one voice, but it's all of us working together that can make a difference. I've been pleased to be an advocate for WRO, a great organization. My first experience with the organization was working with longtime Fair Housing Director Ann Seligson. You saw her in the video. Many of you, Ann has since retired, but many of you will remember Ann. She worked together providing education for both realtors and the public on home ownership. We especially liked working together on issues related to co-ops. For the past couple of years, I've been pleased to be on the board of WRO. When I look around the room, I see many of you who share in my passion for advocacy. I see Leah Carroll and many others who work with me in approaching the challenges of co-ops and how co-ops are purchased. I'm passionate about legislation that would require that a co-op board give a reason why a purchaser is rejected and set a time frame in that process. For example, when a client was rejected by a co-op board because she and her husband wanted to live together in a studio apartment, I can't imagine it, I worked with Jim Heyer to get them approved. The co-op now allows 2 people in a studio apartment. Advocacy is working to address community issues on Garth Road with my friends Dominic DiLorenzo and Freda Turnoff. Where are you guys? Freda and Dominic. Dominic DiLorenzo, who is Executive Director of the Garth Road Cooperative Council, and I am pleased, I don't know if I should announce your age, Dominic, 93? 93. And Dominic and I have worked together for many, many years, going to town hall and approaching all the issues related to our community. And I can't thank Dominic and Freda enough for being here. Advocacy is working with the Board of Realtors, with Richard Haggerty, Drew Kessler, Pam, and Diane, and all the others, Marcine, all of you that are here tonight, working to address issues and legislation that affects realtors. Advocacy is working as a member of the Law Board, advancing rights for all LGBT people. One of my proudest achievements was advocating for the establishment of the Westchester County Human Rights Commission, and later becoming its vice chair and chairman. For the past 24 years, almost 24 years, my husband, now I can officially say that in 50 states. My husband John has been by my side, adding his voice to all my advocacy work. This recognition is as much his as it is mine. So I'd like to call John up to share this honor with me. You would think he's shy, but I know the Board of Realtors table knows differently. Right? Let's talk about this, John. So, so earlier this month, I wrote this down, but I think I'm just going to... Earlier this month, we were at a lobby day for the realtors. And I was in front at a big table. It was one of the largest chambers in the Capitol. And we were there to speak to the state assembly and state senators about real estate issues. My mission was to talk about co-op disclosure, co-op transparency. So we were all sitting in the room, and we had maybe 50, 60, 100 realtors sitting in the room. And we only had a few legislators come in at that time. We were early a little. And there was Senator Bonasek. So I began, we went around and said, okay, each one of us is going to take an issue. I was at the table. I said, okay, it's my turn to talk about the co-op issue. And Senator Bonasek says, oh, I don't care about co-ops. I don't have any in my district. Move to the next issue. We started to move to the next issue when all of a sudden from in the room, there's a voice that yells, wait a minute, Senator. This is an issue that's important to us. You should hear about it. Thank you, John.
Get the finger right though.
He was pointing the finger at the senator saying, this is important. The senator didn't want to hear. So, before I conclude, I want to be sure to thank again WRO and the Development Committee, my friend Jim Heyer, Nick, where did Nick go? Oh, in the back. Nick, and all of, once you start thanking people, you run into a danger that you're going to leave somebody out. But I especially want to thank WRO. It was just overwhelming, and I appreciate the honor so much, and thank the Development Committee. I want to thank all the sponsors. I want to recognize the table from my office, Brian, Joe, Anthony, Nancy, Charles, Pat, Susan, and Beverly. The Westchester Choice table. I also want to recognize some very good friends who are affiliated with us, or we should say we're affiliated with them. My friends from Garthchester Realty, Jay Mendel and John Benito. We've been working with them for many, many years. I want to thank the Board of Realtors who are all seated at this table, who became a sponsor for tonight's event. Thank you so much for your support. And I know I have some friends around the room. Women's Council of Realtors. Where's the Women's Council? In the back over here. So thank you so much. They're all over. Thank you to the Women's Council of Realtors. So I really want to thank everyone. I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. I'm so honored to be recognized by WRO and share it with you. I promise to continue my work for the community and for human rights. I'll continue my family's tradition of public service, advocacy, and equal rights for all.